Asteroid City marks Wes Anderson's 11th feature film, so today let's rank them all from worst to best. Hey everybody, my name's Justin here. I try to watch everything that hits theaters and on streaming services. If you guys are like me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell notification for more up and coming content. Leave your list down below. How would you rank all 11 Wes Anderson films from worst to best? Coming in last place is The French Dispatch. The French Dispatch was a very odd film when it came to its narrative. With your typical A to B story for Wes Anderson films, it was a bit of a shakeup, and it was hard to feel invested in all of the stories within this movie, as we do have some that I felt really connected to, and I was invested in the style of it, especially early on with Owen Wilson. But then there were some that were a little bit longer. I just wasn't as interested in what was going on, especially when it came to Timothée Chalamet at the end of the movie. So I like how this movie did look at journalism, the different stories that surround journalism, and the performances are really good. The direction in here is absolutely beautiful. Everything's in frame. It looks really good. And we got a lot of talented stars behind this movie, but with so many different little stories going on, some very short, some a little longer than others, it's hard to feel connected when it does move fairly quick throughout, and the characters are always changing, and stories are being brought in and stories are being ended. That's the problem with movies like this, is that it's hard to feel connected to one thing. But overall, The French Dispatch was very pleasing to look at, much like other Wes Anderson movies, but it's hard to feel anything for this story. Coming in at number 10 is Asteroid City. The latest Wes Anderson film was a bit of a jumbled mess. You have this story that's set up in the beginning that is narrated by Bryan Cranston, and we learn that it's a story of creating a play, and the play is set in Asteroid City. That's where we have Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson and Steve Carell and Liev Schreiber as well. A lot of big names within this movie. Problem with this movie is very similar to The French Dispatch, is that I just don't feel connected to this movie. I'm not interested in the story. Even if I do think the story is pretty good, it's hard to feel the depth of these characters. When you have some strong setups for these characters, especially Jason Schwartzman's character, as you briefly deal with grief as he is taking care of his 3 daughters and his son, and he is calling his father, played by Tom Hanks, for help. And then you got Scarlett Johansson in there as well, and Steve Carell, and a lot of other big names within this movie. But then you're bouncing back and forth between the story, the play of Asteroid City, that looks very bright, and the color palette is beautiful. The direction is really good. But then you're going back to this black and white, smaller frame story that's centered around Adrien Brody as they're creating the play for Asteroid City. I'm not really moved by all of the Adrien Brody sequences, and I think if they cut that out, you could have added more depth to some of the characters in Asteroid City, because I like the look of it. I like the setting in the story as well, but it feels very hollow. Coming in at number 9 is the Darjeeling Limited. I like the performances in here. Jason Schwartzman, Adrien Brody, Owen Wilson, people that have worked with Wes Anderson before. So you know what you're getting when it comes to certain actors and actresses involved in this movie. And the movie tries really hard to fill the genuine connection between these brothers and their arguments and the growth of their relationships. You do feel like they are brothers. You do feel some tension amongst the group, but the movie tries so hard to have Owen Wilson lead the group and have his brothers confront some past trauma that they've had. And with Owen Wilson trying so hard, I feel like the movie is trying so hard to have any sort of depth or any sort of development for these characters. It looks great, and there is some really good acting. The Darjeeling Limited is one that just kind of moves along. It's not a film that is deep or emotional for the brothers. It's not testing that relationship as much as I think it should. There are some arguments and they're fighting as well, but the really just one-note performances from everybody does not help this movie at all. It does not help the relationship develop or see the emotions coming out from this group. So it's a pretty just average film for Wes Anderson. Coming in at number 8 is Isle of Dogs. This film looks absolutely beautiful. I love the stop motion animation in here and how clean it looks. The attention to detail, especially when they are making like the sushi and scenes like that, you could tell that Wes Anderson put a lot of thought into each scene within this movie. And I do like the dogs in here, the conflict amongst them, as they have different opinions on the humans, and watching them navigate all of that and then watching them grow as well. That's a highlight of the movie for me, is the actual dogs. When you start to dive into some side stories of controlling the island and the medicine as well for the animals, I kind of lose interest in all of that. I would much rather just focus on the dogs and this young boy who travels to this island to find his dog. I was really moved by all of that, and that does work. And there are a lot of fun characters and performance and some voice performances as well within this movie. But it just starts to lose its focus several times throughout the movie. And it does look amazing, but I'm rather focused on other things. Coming in at number 7 is Bottle Rocket. The movie with Luke and Owen Wilson is a lot of fun. This is the first Wes Anderson movie. He really didn't have his style in this movie. It does feel just kind of like your average film, like it could have been directed by anybody. It wasn't until Rushmore that he really started to find his style. But Bottle Rocket is a fun movie. I like how Luke Wilson's just kind of along for the ride when it comes to Owen Wilson. Now I think about it, Owen Wilson's character is kind of similar to the Darjeeling Limited, controlling a lot of the scenes and what other characters are doing. But this story, I feel like it is focused on friendship between the two. And then the movie starts to form this relationship between this maid at a hotel and Luke Wilson. And they start to have this romance in here that feels poorly developed for when it was introduced in the movie. And they try to carry that throughout the film. It's sweet, but I feel like the focus is other places, more so Luke and Owen Wilson. I really do like Bottle Rocket. It's got a fun soundtrack to it. Performances are fun. It's interesting to see Wes Anderson back in the 90s directing this movie, and compared to films like The Royal Tenenbaums and The Life Aquatic and all those movies that he's directed. Clear, distinct style. You could watch any Wes Anderson movie besides Bottle Rocket and know that is Wes Anderson. It's hard to determine his style within this movie. It wasn't until Rushmore that he found his footing. But I really do like Bottle Rocket. It's a lot of fun. Coming at number 6 is The Life Aquatic. This movie is a lot of fun. I really think it balances its large cast very well, with Bill Murray and Cate Blanchett and a lot of other big names within this movie. I was impressed with how they were able to juggle everybody within this movie. With movies that have a lot of other characters, you have to have individual stories. But with this movie, it's more focused on just this group. This movie is very quirky. It's colorful. I like the underwater sequences in here, and his style is full force within this movie. The interactions between our characters is really entertaining, but the movie does drag towards the end. You feel like it's gonna end with one scene and then another scene is added, and you feel like this could be the ending and then another scene is added. So it takes a lot to get through the ending of the movie, but everything else from the setup to the style, performances in here, The Life Aquatic is a very colorful, unique film. Coming at number 5 is The Royal Tenenbaums. Gene Hackman, Angelica Houston, Ben Stiller, Gwyneth Paltrow, Luke Wilson, Owen Wilson, Bill Murray. There is so many talented people within this film. And much like Life Aquatic, what I said is that it does have side stories, but they feel all connected. And it really highlights a dysfunctional family. family members that hate each other, a father that's trying to reconnect with his children. There are highlights to certain relationships, struggles along the way. It feels very realistic. And some of the subplots too are some of the best parts within the movie. The film takes an interesting look at just looking at someone's life. They seem perfect on screen, but many times it peels back the layers of these characters, looking deeper at these characters, and that adds to the development of the characters and the relationships throughout the film, and it trying to be realistic as well. But it's quirky, it's funny. I like the relationships. The performances are a lot of fun. This has always been an entertaining Wes Anderson movie. Coming in at fourth place is Rushmore. I love this movie. It's a lot of fun. I really like the back and forth between Bill Murray and Jason Schwartzman. It does take some time to set up that back and forth as they are falling in love with this teacher, and so watching them try to sabotage the other person, it's hilarious. There's a lot of funny moments within this movie. I think the setup is slow, and when we get into Jason Schwartzman falling in love with this teacher and then having Bill Murray in there as well, that's where the film picks up. The last half of the movie is highly entertaining. Pure Wes Anderson. The direction is perfect. The performances are a lot of fun. It's hilarious. Coming at third place is Fantastic Mr. Fox. I love the story of Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl. I read it to my students every year, and I think the adaptation is pretty good. The voice performances are really good, especially George Clooney as Mr. Fox. The movie feels very quick. It moves at a really fast pace, and that works for it, as you do have our three farmers that are trying to capture the fox and his family. So you have to move the story quickly throughout. Mr. Fox can protect his family, and then coming across their farms and other animals as well. It's really entertaining. It's beautiful. The stop motion animation is really good in here. The characters are quirky. They're very likable. It's easy to get through this movie and enjoy the story and how Mr. Fox is taking charge of everything, and the voice acting as well. Coming in second place is The Grand Budapest Hotel. I am glad I rewatched this movie the other day, because when I first saw it, I thought it was all right. Upon a rewatch, it's really good. It is probably the funniest Wes Anderson film. I found myself laughing quite often in this film. Ralph Fiennes is perfect in this movie. And Tony Revolori also grows nicely throughout the film. We see a genuine connection that is growing between the two, enough development for each character, and also the pairing as well. The setting for the Budapest Hotel and the exterior shots of the hotel, it looks stunning. Everything's in frame. Everything just looks so nice and clean, and you get that with a Wes Anderson film. But I love the colors in here, like a light purple and pink to it. It looks amazing. But I love the progression of the story and all of the characters that are involved within the movie. Like I said, I laughed quite often. I don't remember enjoying it much when I watched it in 2014. And even upon a rewatch for Isle of Dogs, since I didn't do a ranking video for French Dispatch, it's been a while since I've seen this movie. And I'm glad I did rewatch it, because if I didn't, it'd probably be lower on the list. After a third rewatch, I really liked the movie. I liked the style. I like the characters, the relationship that develops, the odd situations that both Ralph Fiennes and Tony Revolori goes through, how it benefits them, and they grow throughout. Some hilarious moments throughout the film as well. The Grand Budapest Hotel is easily one of the best Wes Anderson films. But coming in first place for me is Moonrise Kingdom. I have always loved Moonrise Kingdom. I think it's one of the earlier films I saw for Wes Anderson. I didn't check out these films growing up. I do remember seeing Fantastic Mr. Fox when I was in high school, but it wasn't until I was in college that I started to dive deep into his filmography, and it started with Moonrise Kingdom, since I did see that in theaters. And so then I watched everything pretty much between Moonrise Kingdom and Grand Budapest Hotel. And it was a fun time that I watched all these films in college. Moonrise Kingdom has a beautiful score to it, and has some really good performances from our young actor and actress within the film. and watching their love grow throughout the movie. It's really endearing as they are venturing off into the wilderness by themselves, seeing how they can navigate everything and rely on each other. It's very sweet. It's just a great coming of age story about two kids that want to explore life. They want to get away from their parents. The music in here accompanies this movie very well, and you're just so in love with the story, the score, the beautiful moments from Wes Anderson. This is the best film from him, and honestly one of my favorite films of the 2010s. When I watched it in theaters, I fell in love with it immediately, and I started to really appreciate Wes Anderson's style, and it's highlighted in this movie. It's in full force, and it works so well. And Moonrise Kingdom for me is my favorite Wes Anderson film. So there you guys have it, all 11 Wes Anderson movies ranked worst to best. How would you rank them? Let me know in the comment section down below, and stay tuned for more up and coming content like this. My name is Just Watch Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.